A summer that started with lots of hope and excitement for the United States men's national team ended with abysmal results. I would argue they were equally as bad as the Star Wars sequel trilogy, but not as bad as Morbius. So we got that going for us. From a group stage exit in the Copa America at home to an Olympics where the national team said goodbye in the quarterfinals with a 4-0 loss to Morocco. I would say a horrible Copa America and a mediocre Olympics. One could say the summer was a disaster in the short term. But maybe, just maybe, it was a success when we look into the big picture. If we look 2 years into the future for the US men's national team in the World Cup, maybe it was a learning curve for the players, and getting rid of Gregg Berhalter is the biggest win of them all. It felt like we were constipated for 5 years, and then when we got rid of him, we kind of finally hit the toilet. So let's talk about it. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to this 2-episode series that we're going to have with Adam, USMNT Stan, a dear friend of the channel. This is how it's going to go. Part 1, which is today's episode, we're going to go through the US men's national team summer, Copa America, the Olympics, and we're going to give 2 players that had their stocks go up and 2 players that had their stocks go down. So let me know your stocks up and down in the comment section down below. Then we're going to rate the US men's national team summer by giving it 2 different ratings. One simply based on performance, which again, it's not going to be good. And the other is more on the outcome and future outlook. So it's going to be a bit different, and hopefully we can put some positivity right there. Now, part 2 will be released one day after this episode, and we're going to dive into which unexpected players or prospects could break into the US men's national team 2026 World Cup roster. So as always, sit back, relax, hit the like button, because if you don't hit the like button, you are a loser. Only losers don't hit the like button, and Canadians. So if you're not Canadian and you're not a loser, or if you're not a Canadian loser, you have already smashed the like button. All right, let's begin. Okay, everyone, familiar face back here at Tactical Manager TV. Adam, welcome back. It seems like you're back every time we have a camp or a major tournament. I feel like this is the most depressing one you've ever been here. This has been a terrible summer.
Yeah, I think we started doing these, after things got better, and it wasn't, we weren't doing a World Cup. Like maybe some of the World Cups would have been a little more nerve-wracking, some of those like kind of rough World Cup qualifying windows. But yeah, I think we started doing them after the World Cup, and everything's been pretty decent, not perfect, but pretty decent. And now it's like, you asked me, hey, let's wrap up the summer. And I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. And dug into it and was like, man, I don't feel nearly as bad as I did back in the day, but like, certainly I haven't felt this way about like the program top to bottom. And I'm excited to get into some of the details in a while. So yeah, we'll see.
I guess like we can say like things weren't bad because the results were kind of coming, the bare minimum results, beating Mexico. But we were always talking about how it looks like this plane's going to crash. It always felt this way. And it crashed. And
Right.
We'll talk about, because it's not all doom and gloom, because it did crash probably at the best moment possible. Like we still have time for the World Cup, right? It's not it's not in 2025, and it's not during the World Cup. So there is time to fix this plane, and hopefully everyone survived.
And
But
on a high level, before we dig into some of these specific topics, it's like this was supposed to be the summer of propulsion from a program standpoint, right? It's like, okay, World Cup 2022, this young group. And if you think back to 2022, next wave, right? Everybody's saying we got a young group and a next wave, right? So you would think, hey, 2024, right? We all knew we were in Copa. We're gonna take it. We're gonna see a jump up, right? No, we're not gonna win Copa. We're gonna see this team level up, clearly level up, and we're gonna see some young. We qualify for the Olympics for the first time, and what is it, 14, 16 years, something like that.
2008, the last time.
16 years. So we're going to see that, right? And we're going to see a young crew in that level up, and we're going to see our U20s level up, right? So it's like we were supposed to see this, this upward trajectory, and I'm excited to get in and kind of talk about it because I'm not sure we saw that.
Yeah. So just to summarize to everyone, everything me and Adam kind of briefly talked about. If you were living under a rock, the United States men's national team became the first host nation to get grouped in the Copa America in the history. Then we had an Olympics that we hadn't played since '08. So you can see just the fact that we played as improvement. But we had a very mediocre Olympics where we lost 3-0 to France, beat two teams that were close to semi-pros, New Zealand and Guinea. And then we lost 4-0 to Morocco in the quarterfinals, and we were out. It was very mediocre, very poor. And then the U20s that Adam just talked about literally just happened. We made it to the final against Mexico, and we lost to Mexico in extra time. So even Mexico we're not beating this summer. Even Mexico. But Adam, that's the summary. What we want to do today is first we're going to go through two players that their stocks went up during the summer, then two players that their stocks went down. And again, this can be senior team, Olympic team, anything. Can be even a player that wasn't there, that his stock went up because other guys sucked. And then last but not least, we're going to rate from 1 to 10 this summer based off performance, which obviously that's going to be low. And then the other rating we're going to do is based off everything that happened, future outlook, projection, like Berhalter being fired plays a role in the positive side. What will you rate this summer? So why don't we start with the players with stocks up? Because that's at least a positive. I know there's not many, but there's a few. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. So Ballo was stock up for me. I think we saw at Copa, we saw him put in some performances that were in line with, I think, what a lot of us have seen as his potential and seen and thought he was going to bring, right? Which is a guy who was a dynamic guy who can make a goal out of nothing at times, right? And can provide, consistently provide runs that are dangerous. And I thought you saw in multiple games, right? You saw him be a game changer, and big stock up for me because I think coming into the summer, there's a lot of question. Is it going to be Sargent? Is it going to be Haji? Is it going to be Pepe? Is it going to be Ballo? And it seemed like it was very up in the air. And I had out of the summer, I did not come into the summer in doubt, as we've talked about, Tack. Ballo's been my number one because once again, if you watch through club, you understand for multiple years, you understand the level guys are at, right? Not short-term form. Oh, in the last month, this guy scored a couple goals. He's got to be in, right? I understood the level of Ballo and who he is, his long-term impact he's going to have, and how he's not as good as Pulisic right now, but it's that kind of thing, right? It's like, oh, we have Christian Pulisic. He's playing. Oh, he's not in good form. Play Aronson. No, you're crazy. Play Pulisic, right? Always play Pulisic. That's how I felt about Ballo. A lot of people, I feel like, in the community didn't yet, right? Maybe they hadn't watched club as much, or they watched some this year when he struggled, and they were like, man, Sargent's scoring a lot.
Maybe they're just dumb.
Yeah. Sargent's scoring a lot in championship. He's probably the guy. And it's like, yeah, I don't think you know what that means, right? I don't think you've watched championship enough to understand that goal scoring isn't always translatable up. So that was my first one, and that's an exciting one because 9 has been a big question mark for us for a long time, and hopefully he can really lock that down in a way that we feel really good about the 9 moving forward.
Yeah, one can argue that Balogun, out of the disgrace that was our Copa America, I thought he played fairly well almost every game. If I'm mistaken right now, he kept us in. Maybe not the Uruguay one because he even got injured in the first half.
Right.
But more because he got injured, but played well against Panama and Bolivia. And he was a player that many question. And now we see that he's up there, up in our number one tier of like, guys, this is the guy that he can be poor for 2 to 3 games. You persist on him. Unless he sucks for like 2 years, then that's a different discussion. I had Balogun too as one of mine. The next one that I'm going to put is Tim Weah because he got Berhalter fired. I'm joking. I'm not putting Weah there, even though I know a lot of people were pissed at him. I was at the time, but after Berhalter actually got fired, I kind of almost want to give Tim Weah a hug. But I'm going to put a name that we didn't even see this summer, and his stock went up. And I don't think anyone was expecting this name. I'm going to say Leonard Maloney for a few reasons here. Looked solid for a Bundesliga side that was mid-table. He's going to be starting again for Heidenheim in the Bundesliga. He can play the 6, can play center back, can play left back if you need, a more defensive left back. And I think there's a few reasons I mentioned. One, Tyler Adams just had another surgery. I'm not saying to keep Tyler out of the team, but you can't always count on him at this point. You can't. Like, he's always injured. And how many injuries will it take for Tyler to just not look like Tyler anymore, too? Right? He still looked good. Well, Copa America wasn't that good, but he looked good before against Mexico, whatever. But or at least the goal he scored. Leonard Maloney has definitely proven he can play in a Bundesliga level. He can play the six, which would be a position that's tighter. We did lack one thing in this roster of Berhalter. We didn't really have players with a lot of versatility, right? Like Weston is a versatile player that can play wide, Musa. And then after that, they're mostly players that are like one position, maybe a second one, but truly just one. Like very more like one natural position. Maloney can play all those. And center back was also an issue, right? It was also an issue, like for Olympic team and for the other one. Now, I still think Richard's our best center back. We should persist on him. Ream will be phased out eventually. Maloney, I'm not saying he's going to be a starting center back, but it's an option, right? A guy that can grind, do the hustle work, and is technical enough to contribute. Not the most technical, but enough. So Balogun is one. I had Balogun too. Mine, I'll start with Maloney. I don't know who's your second. I'm interested.
Yeah, my second, and it's kind of the old tale of like sometimes not being there can be the best thing for your stock, right? We've seen that in the past, and it's Serginho Dest. And I say that because I think our team, what you saw is a clear lack in the Uruguay game, in the Panama game, once we went to 10 men, a clear lack of like consistent ability to break down the defense, right? And I think our team, if you've watched us for years, we have relied on those right side connections, Dest, Weah, Musa, Dest, Weah, McKennie, whoever you're putting over there, to connect and build up, and usually ends with a Weah run. We've seen some Dest bangers through the years, right, on those connection plays. But you saw like a clear inability for us to like really do what we always have done with Dest, which is create danger on the right side of the field. And to me, there's not a lot of stock ups. So that's a part of this, right? Is like looking across the team, it's hard to find anybody whose stock is up. But for me, Dest's stock is up because I'm like, oh yeah, there is a clear difference between our team with and without him. And I think a lot of people, for whatever reason, once again, stupidity kind of comes to mind, have like through the years been like, nah, Scally over Dest, or like some other. I'm like, what do you like? No. Like, I get that Dest has some weaknesses, right? And I get that he's not the strongest defensive player. There's no world you don't figure it out, right? I don't care if you adjust tactics, if you play a stay-at-home left back, you put Serginho Dest on the field and you let him do what he does, right? And to me, you let him do it at right back because it creates more danger. So big summer for him, even though we're not going to probably see him play for a lot of months with his surgery, but big summer just in a way that like big gap, huge missing piece for us. And honestly, we're not quite as deep, especially guys who can like break down the defense, guys who know how to play, one touch, soccer, connection soccer, get into those rondos, right? Like that's the stuff that like Dest brings that Scally certainly doesn't, right? And really, we don't have a lot of guys who bring that. And it was missing this summer. I thought it was missing.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Scally actually was one of the players that he actually did fine during the summer. Scally wasn't really poor at all.
Totally agree.
Yeah, but yes, I think how much more Dest offers going forward, what Scally does on the defensive end doesn't overcome that. And there's ways you can adjust defensively to still, because again, I always say this, it's much easier to defend in soccer than it is to attack. So if you have a guy with that talent that can actually make a difference, you try to go more towards a way that you can fit the guy that can actually provide something going forward rather than the defender. Because sometimes being a good defender in soccer doesn't require much skill on the ball. You can just be athletic, good reading of the game, good feet, and yeah, essentially that. And that can be enough. Positioning, being good on the ball, that's actually skill. That requires skill. And I know some defenders are going to get pissed with what I just said. But
well, how many guys, right? Here's my thing with Dest, right? Like, if you watch enough, right, soccer becomes about how many moments can you create that are goal dangerous, right? Not necessarily like shots in front of the goal, but just how many actions are you creating that are like, oh, that's a nice situation that's going to lead to a potential ball a through ball, right? So there were 3-4 passes that were created that opened up a run, right? Or there were 3-4 passes that were created that led to, a potential pass. Now, the final pass isn't always made, right? We know that. The shots aren't always finished. But if you create a lot of chances over the course of a game, you score more goals. That's just how it works, right? And like a clear weakness on our team is it's like Gio, Pulisic. Is anyone else really good at like the type of soccer that makes, traditionally Brazil or Spain, right? Like we don't have, and I'm not saying we're going to be those teams. That's not what I'm saying, but you need players on the field who can connect and create in moments like that, right? You just do. And you take Dest off and it's like, man, I don't know. I felt it for some reason. It was like, man, it just feels like we don't have much offensively out there. We felt a little bit more like old school USMNT.
We kind of look like ass every game. Even the Bolivia win, we weren't good. Like even the 2-0 win. And I remember even on YouTube, me and Pete we were a little harsh on that 2-0 win because we were talking about how poor we were. And we got a lot of hate on YouTube. And then, later on we got grouped and then the people that complained kind of disappeared. But I'm going to go super quick with my other stocks up. And it's funny because the summer was so bad that most stocks up, essentially 3 out of the 4 that we're going to give are players that weren't there. So my other one is Trusty because Carter Vickers was horrible. Reem is aging. Miles and Zimmerman were not good in the Olympics, a U23 tournament. So it just comes to show that it's like, okay, maybe Trusty's not good enough either, but now it's maybe give him a shot. Like maybe give him a look. And he wasn't even getting any of that. So I think his stocks went up more just because he didn't screw things over. That's it. He wasn't there to screw things over. But like Carter Vickers was a big disappointment for me. We're going to talk about that probably in a second. But I'm just going to say Austin Trusty probably deserves a look. That's about it. I'm not saying he's going to solve it. I'm not even saying he's going to do better than any of those guys. But because they were so poor, and this guy probably deserves a look. But let's go to stocks down because that's the most. That one actually, boy, I was trying to make my list and I was like, I'm going to have to cut it at 2 because if I can go to 12 here. I can go to 12. I can't stop. But I'll start with this one. I'll give the first one. To me, the first one is Weston McKennie. Right away. Shows up for a professional athlete, overweight for a professional. And then people are going to say, no, it's just his body structure. I'm sorry. We have seen Weston McKennie in shape. That is not McKennie in shape. We have seen it. And he flies on the field when he's in shape. And physically, you can see it. He was bloated, I guess is a way to put it, for a professional athlete, of course. And he didn't play well also. He didn't play well, just to make that clear. There was also the incident that after we lost to Panama, he was seen in a hookah lounge. And understand, like, I am all for players having a life outside of the field. I am all for it. I just think there's the right, let's say we lost to Panama and he went out to dinner with his mom and his dad. I was like, yeah, like, what's the big deal? Like, but when you go to a hookah lounge, it gives more the impression that you're like partying and chilling. It's like, guys, not the time, right? Not the time. You have
optics, man. Optics.
Yes. Read the room. He went out to have dinner with his mom after the loss. Perfect. I mean, you got to eat, and maybe it helps you get your mind off of it. But guys, read the room. And McKennie didn't read the room. It almost gives the impression that he didn't care, right? Which we know he does care, but that's the impression it gives. And I thought that as one of the veterans, one of the leaders of this group, one of the best players of this group, coming out of one of the best seasons of his career with Juventus, I thought he should have been a role model. I thought he should have had one heck of a tournament. And we didn't get any of that from Weston all summer long. Every single game, he was poor. Every single game. And this guy is supposed to be one of our best players. And it wasn't because of injuries or bad luck. It was literally because it didn't seem like the guy cared enough about it. But that's just me. So McKennie is my one. That was when I was thinking of it, McKennie was the first one that landed.
So your last stock up introed my stock down. And I'm going to cheat here, right? Because I'm like you. I was like, man, there's a lot. I was like, all right, how can I roll them all into one? USMNT center backs, Tat. That is stock down. USMNT,
all of them.
Center back position. Just the position, man. Like Richards I talked about propulsion before. This was supposed to be, to me, coming off his best season, club season, right? Kind of settled in at a top tier club, played well. And it was supposed to be like, now for a national team, we're going to see the guy that we all know and love, right? And it just wasn't that, right? It was subpar for the standard that I have for him based on what I've seen, right? And it wasn't horrific. It wasn't like a horror show. It wasn't like, oh my God, like, what are we going to do? Like, turn the page. I'm with you. I'm still in on him. I think he's good enough. I think he'll figure it out. But certainly, like, that's our top tier. And it was a bad summer for him. And then just go through, like, Reem looks like he's pretty close to done. Once again, I don't think it was horrific, but just not as good as the World Cup, right? It was a level down from the World Cup. And then I thought, like you mentioned, Zim and Miles, right? Miles, who a lot of people have still as like an edge. Like I've been like, is he 5? Is he 6? Right? He's not in the top 4 for me, but is he somewhere in there? And it's like, man, didn't look like it to me, right? Like, and Zim, like, he's phasing out too. And then you just kind of keep going through it and you're like, all right, anyone who got it, CCV you mentioned, right? Like, oh, CCV and Richards could be a good pairing. Well, scratch, like that is a scratch that for me right now, at least. It's like, I need to see more. And so now where do we go, right? We have to go to guys that we literally haven't seen. It's like, okay, maybe Trusty or maybe McKenzie can provide something, or maybe Maloney can move to center back. Like, to me, though, the fact that you've said all those things pretty much, and the fact that you've said them, Tack, shows that the center back position is massively down right now, and we need to figure it out because you cannot win in international soccer without good center backs. It's really difficult,
especially when you're meant to be the underdog. Like
exactly.
we're not a team that's going to literally control possession against Brazil, Spain, France, Argentina, and just not expose our center backs. Our center backs will always be exposed to the forwards of the opposition. We need a good center back, and I guess I'm going to piggyback on that one because you talked about center backs, and we need good defenders if we want to pull an upset in the World Cup and we want to do well. We need a good defense, and to have a good defense, you need good center backs, but it starts with a goalkeeper. And Matt Turner, to me, is stocks down. Again, horrible with his feet, but that's something we just kind of accepted over the years. It's like, that's what it is. But he's a great shot stopper. In terms of shot stopping this summer, he had ups and downs. Like the Brazil game, he was really good. Made some crucial saves. A friendly, but still, credit where it's due. He was great. Colombia, Copa America, not great. And then after all of that, he had an interview after the Copa America where he said the team, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said the team was going in the right direction, right? Everything's fine. Everything's fine. It's like, brother, we became the first. Even Bolivia got out of the group when they hosted it. Even Bolivia.
Read the room. I'll say read the room again, Tag.
Read the room. Just even if you think we're in the right direction, just say something like, this isn't good enough. We have to improve. This is not good enough. But it was just, he's just such a soft figure and poor with his feet. And lately he's been very shaky also as a shot stopper. Didn't work out in the Premier League. Who knows where he's going to go? Maybe he'll be back in Major League Soccer, which I think it's fine for a goalkeeper. But Matt Turner's stock down, and I think that the next 2 years, we need to find a replacement for him urgent. And I don't think your long-lost brother, Ethan Horvath, will be the solution too, Adam. I don't think it will be.
I don't think he is. I mean, I'd
So
like to have seen him probably. I mean, Turner wasn't lighting up the world, but I don't think it changes any games.
No, and it's pretty funny to me because and in case anyone's wondering, it's like, why are you guys not beating on Gregg Berhalter? That's a dead horse. It's gone. Like we will briefly mention him at some point.
I mean, that's like if a stock implodes and a company goes bankrupt, you can't say stock down, right? Like it went bankrupt.
I'm just saying, like we're talking about the players and we're barely mentioning him. Like if most players were poor, is that not on the coach? Yeah, a lot of it is on the coach. But I feel like we've talked about him for so long and he's gone that there'll be some mentions, but let's move on from him slowly. Just kind of like get rid of that guy. I can't, like he's not USMNT herpes. We can get rid of him. So forget him. But to me, it's Matt Turner just because of the mentality and even just the talent level. Like very often he looks like a guy that started playing soccer when he was 15 because guess what? He did start playing soccer. So to me, it's Turner. Who's your number 2?
And I'm glad you did the caveat of saying, hey, like let's just kind of forget about Berhalter in these combos because you have to. Because it's like, okay, well, maybe when we get a new coach who utilizes the players differently, their stocks will all go up. Cool, and we'll see. We'll have that combo after a hopefully a fall camp or something. But right now, right, and me, Tech, like I have been as in this guy's corner over the years, and I'm still a believer in him, right? I do think that he's going to find the right move. And I think he's going to find the right scenario to start to unleash his game. But Gio Reyna, right? And you can absolutely, and you can make the argument, well, how did Berhalter use him? What did he ask him to do? But like, listen, guys, like this is a step back, be neutral, stock up, stock down. Gio Reyna stocks down, right? I mean, he's coming off of, a really bad club season. And coming into that summer, it was like, well, are we going to see Gio kind of have this, boom moment in Copa where it's like, see, there he is, right? Kind of like, and Ballo had a little bit of that, right? It wasn't like the big, but it was like, oh, cool, boom, you saw the flashes, and you just didn't see it. And whatever excuse or whatever reason we want to give, that's fine. Stock's down though. I mean, it just is. Like, it would be a great time to buy Gio Reyna stock right now, in all honesty, right? And if it was a stock market, I would scoop it up because I'm a believer in the fact that he's going to figure it out and find the right place.
This is not financial advice, by the way, everyone, please.
But stock down right now, right? I mean, it just is. Like, there's no other way to put it than Gio Reyna stock is the lowest it probably has ever been at this current moment.
I agree that the stock is at the low, especially club. He's at Dortmund at the time of this recording. He's still with Dortmund, and they're saying he's not on their plans. He's going to leave. I don't know what's going on. This might be the only part I disagree with you a little bit. I don't think his stock with the U.S. men's national team went down. It could change with the coach, of course. It could change, mainly because like Musa wasn't good, McKennie wasn't good. So I'm trying to just think of players in like his position. Musa, McKennie, Tillman was poor and not given many. I think Tillman should probably get more opportunities. Tillman,
but yeah, I think I know what you're going to say. Let me just say that stock up, stock down to me is not like is your stock currently lower than this other guy? That's not what it is to me, right? Apple, right? Name any company that has like a super high performing stock. When their stock goes down, they're still a much more valuable company than almost everyone, right? So this is my point, right? If you look back to a year ago, we're coming off that Nations League where it's like we play Gio at the 10 and he's unleashed. And you go a year later, Tack, and it's like, man, he didn't even play at club and he did some Regista stuff. He wasn't in the final third.
Okay, I see what you mean. Poor season.
That's my point. It's like everybody's different, right? Like a stock down for Pulisic doesn't mean he's worse than anybody who's stock. You could have guys stock go up and somebody's still better. So that's where I'm coming from on it, because once again, propulsion in the program, right? Gio Reyna, it's regression. However we want to put it, in my opinion, he's regressed, right? Other guys around him have as well, but I thought he was one to call out just because, and if you really want to get into it, I think how he was being utilized, it really didn't open up a chance for him to put his stock up, in my opinion. He was being asked to do things that there was no way with what we expect him to do. He wasn't in the spaces to do them, but he's stock down for me.
Yeah, no, I understand your point now. Obviously, there's different criteria of what we use. So mainly what I do when I'm doing stocks up and down, so you understand, is I kind of compare if it went down compared to, or someone from his position went up, so that forced him to go down. So you're not really putting anyone ahead of him. It's just like he was here for you. Now he's maybe here or here. Like
right. There was a dip compared to what I thought, right? And there were some comparable dips around, but to me he's an interesting one to talk about, because there's actually some nuance there, right? Like it's not just as simple as some people on Twitter make it, which they're just like, Gio Reyna sucks now. It's like, no. There's a lot going on there. And very much like if you flash back a year plus ago, a lot of people in the world were like, Christian Pulisic's not very good. And it's like,
no, he was at Chelsea.
He needs the right club spot. He needs the right club spot, man. Like, it's just.
What I think about Gio is, he was poorly utilized by Berhalter, playing deep as a regista. That was not smart. Didn't work out. Was ineffective. And again, if he was doing that to overcome Tyler Adams' weakness on the build out, that's on Berhalter. That's his mistake. But anyhow, Gio, what I will do this season is I will hold Gio to a higher standard with his club. Like, no more blaming coach, injuries, nothing. He has to figure it out. Doesn't matter where he's playing. There are no more excuses. He has to figure out his club situation because over time that affects your development. He has to figure out. There are no more excuses for Gio Reyna. We've given him every single opportunity with his club. We talked
Well,
about, oh,
yeah,
Terzic is the problem, Nuno's the problem, injuries. It's
no, agreed.
over.
I'm with you. No,
Yeah.
it's got to be. And to be honest, like finding the right club for you and your team, your agent, your man, whatever, like that is as much of the battle sometimes with club or like the game as anything. And so go find the right place, guys. To his team, go find him the right home. Like he clearly can do it, right? Like go find him the right place where he's going to be valued and people are going to invest in him. But like Tack, let me just ask you this last thing on Gio. Like, was he a standout in
No.
this summer for you?
No.
And to me, any summer where Gio Reyna isn't a standout for our national team, not like people had him as a potential breakout player for the Copa. Like they did for sure. It's a legit opinion, right? And he was so far away from that. So that's kind of, if you kind of understand, hopefully the viewers do as well. That's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, and the viewers can let us know in the comment section, you guys, what do you have stock up, stock down? I'm pretty sure most people are going to have a bunch of stock downs. If we don't put a cap on it, it's like, hey, put as many stock downs as you want. Someone's going to pop up like a 23-man roster. They're going to come up with the whole roster. It's like this stock down right here.
Stock down 11. Like you really can do it right now. Like
we could, but we're trying to. We're gonna. Don't worry, guys. We're gonna end this video on a positive note. We're gonna get there in a second, but before we get to the positive, there's one more negative. I thought about it long and hard. That's what she said. About rating this summer in terms of performance, right? From 1 to 10. And when I say rate the summer, I'm not focusing just on the senior team. I'm focusing on senior and Olympic team because the Olympic team, there are players there that could be on the mix. So it's important to evaluate these players. There were many players in the Olympic team. Paredes, Booth, Griffin Yao, Tanner Tessman, Busio, Miles and Zimmerman were Miles was in the Copa America roster. Schulte for goal. So there were players there, and it's important to evaluate it. So Copa America was a 0. Like there's no positive for that in terms of performance. Getting grouped there with Bolivia, Panama, Uruguay's amazing, but Bolivia and Panama at home, it's a 0. But then I looked into the Olympics, and the Olympics wasn't abysmal. It was mediocre, poor. It was poor, but it wasn't like they did the bare minimum. They got out of the group, and then they got trashed by a team that was obviously better than us. We should have done better and should have made it a tighter score instead of 4-0. But Morocco was better than us. There's no doubt about that. So I'm going to give the overall summer for performance, instead of a 0 or 1, I'm going to give it a 2. The Olympics bumps it up to a 2. It wasn't good, but I don't think the Olympics deserves like a 0 or 1. Copa America, disaster. Congratulations, Gregg Berhalter. We saw this coming, and it finally did. Like, you ran out of luck, and it was, I guess this was one of the, in competitive tournaments in my lifetime, this was probably the biggest embarrassment outside of 2017 World Cup qualifying. Because people even talk about 2006 World Cup, we got grouped. Well, that was a much tougher group than this one with the worst team away from home. This was outside of 2017. This was probably the biggest embarrassment in competitive tournaments or games that I've seen from the U.S. men's national team in my lifetime, of course.
Yeah, so like things like World Cup qualifying, and I get that we've been close in things like World Cup qualifying before, but not really if you look at it, in all honesty, right? Like if you look at the history of World Cup qualifying since 2002, almost every time, except for one, I think, I don't have it offhand, I didn't look at it today, but almost every time we've had enough cushion where we could absorb like one unlucky thing or one bad break or one whatever, right? And to be honest, in the Gregg Berhalter era, we have done nothing where we've given ourselves a cushion, right? And once again, I don't expect to blow out people. I don't expect that, especially World Cup, you're going to need some breaks. I get it. But World Cup qualifying, Tack, we were like a red card away from not qualifying. We were,
or a VAR, actually, because if you don't remember, Zimmerman's mistake against Jamaica. Yeah, Jamaica. Correct. That goal should have been allowed against Jamaica.
Exactly. We're a VAR review. We're a red card. We're an unlucky break where a goal scored, right?
Can I add one thing? Let me add one thing to what you're saying that will like reinforce what you're saying. This last World Cup qualifying that Berhalter was in, it was a final 8. So final 8 allows you to have more room for mistakes. If you're the better team, it's better for you to have more games because you can make a mistake here and bounce back. Before that, for anyone that was too young or doesn't, it was or at least the cycle we failed to qualify. It was a hex, so it was 6, and which with 6, like one loss is a pretty big deal already. But Berhalter had the luxury that you lose here, tie there, you can bounce back and then you keep going. Just to make that clear, the more games you have, if you're the better team, it's better for you.
Right. And so we are, for the first time, really just there's no cushion to qualify, right? Other than when we didn't qualify, right? So it's like when we were all kind of nervous about that, or we didn't value that, or we didn't think like, oh, it's okay, job done. That's the reason why. Because like if you live on that razor's edge, you get to something like Copa America, and you're like, oh, we have a group, we should get out of it. Cool. World Cup's going to be like that, Tack. We're going to be pot A. Remember, we're going to be in a group. Like most likely, we should look at our group and be like, yeah, we should get out, right? Normally, home teams, that's what happens if they're good, right? You have one other good team.
Qatar doesn't.
Yeah, other than Qatar. But we're going to see the pot B team. We're going to be like, they're good, right? And then most likely, unless we get unlucky, there are some pot C's sometimes are pretty damn good. But you're going to have a C and D where you're like, we should win, right? Not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy, but we should win. And like Berhalter, we have created this scenario where we've lived on that razor's edge, and that came back to bite us this Copa, right? And you made a great point. It's like what we've said is possible finally happened, and none of us were cheering for it. We've just been realistic and said, guys, like this is not good. And now, luckily, Tack, we get to move forward, right? It was a 1 or 2 out of 10 summer, to go back to your question and give my rating. So 1 or 2 out of 10 summer, pretty much
1.5 then. Give it a 1.5. 1.5.
Sure, 1.5. Almost as bad as it could have gone, in all honesty, right? Like there just isn't much you can glean from it. It was a summer where we were supposed to go to the next level. And to be honest, we probably dropped down a level or two in terms of like what our expectations are and what we saw.
Now, the last rating that I want to do is a bit different, and it's like everything, it's very subjective, but it's a bit different. It requires us to try to look into the future. And with everything that happened this summer, it's not all negative. Getting rid of Berhalter, to me, was a big positive. I think only bigger than that would be if we made a deep run in the Copa America and saw some actual progress, because at the end of the day, in an ideal world, we want to see, because Berhalter was in charge at the time, we'd rather see progress under him, but it just never happened. And it was kind of like not everyone, but most people saw this coming. Looking into the future, with everything that happened, let's say players that we might have discovered this summer with a good performance here and there, Berhalter leaving, and right now at the time of this recording, we don't have a coach, but there's been some very encouraging reports and certain things that me and Pete have heard that lead us to believe that the coaching hire will be like a good hire. It looks like it's not going to. Cherundolo, forget that. The whole thing that people heard, it's bullshit. It's not happening. Well, I hope to knock on wood or something. I hope it doesn't happen. But it looks like we're going to hire a good coach. A good coach. Let's assume we do hire a good coach. Not talk about Klopp. Talk about like maybe a Pellegrino Materazzo, maybe a Hervé Renard, a good coach. What would you rate the summer in this scenario with that different point of view?
Yeah, so I think that the biggest thing, right, is like to your point, going into the next 2 years with the current coaching regime, right, and their second cycle when things were clearly, regressing. And remember, Tack, talk about razor's edge. We're very, very close to that happening too. We are. Like if we get out of the group, he's not fired. There's no way. As a fan base, we're not allowed. We would not have been able to put enough pressure on. Enough of the fan base still would have like bought into that whole job done thing, right? Job done, out of the group. Can't expect to beat anybody good. Like, and we would have had 2 more years of honestly like stagnation to regression. That's just what would have happened. It was what was going on. And from that perspective, it's like a 10 out of 10 summer because it gives you the optionality for the senior team to have like, to hire the person who could come in and have like a revolutionary 2 years, right? We have a Gold Cup and there's a lot of rumors about who's going to be in that and potentially having, some really good sides from Europe and Africa and some other confederations. So, okay, that like there's things to really look forward to. Can we hire a really good coach? Can they put these really good players who a lot of people are starting to doubt, right? There's a lot of doubt. Are our players good enough? You hear and see that a lot. I think they are. Can the right guy put them in the right spot? Go into like, something like a high-level Gold Cup and get really good experience and maybe like, do some cool stuff there, beat somebody good finally for the first time in about a decade, and then, use that as a springboard to the World Cup, right? So if we're going to be positive and look at it from the bright side, like, I don't know, from the Fire perspective, I might be over exaggerating, but it literally feels like a 10 out of 10 to me. Like that feels really good.
I almost 100% agree with you there. There's one little detail that I'm going to deduct a few points and put it to like an 8.5.
There's a lot I could attack, but I'm just going to be super positive.
No, I'm going to be super. Everything you said, I agree about that, because now we can bring in a guy with fresh ideas, a fresh start, and we can believe and build excitement that maybe this team will look different. And again, if it doesn't, it does have to reach a point where like, okay, maybe we did overrate the player. We'll see.
Sure, we'll see.
I'm not there yet. But
yeah, I agree.
The only reason I am going to deduct a 1.5 was I was hoping we would have a good Copa America. But in this case, in this scenario, the outlook, Berhalter being fired is a good thing. So positive Copa America. But I was hoping in the Olympics, we would see a few young guys stand out in a way where we're like, get ready. This guy is going to fight for a spot. And when I look into the Olympic team, and I mean, I don't want to judge all these guys in one tournament. I want to watch them for their club now and then judge it better. And I'll name a few here. Tenor Testman, I wasn't impressed. I'm going to follow him more with Venezia, and then I'll judge it better. But with the Olympics, I was not impressed at all. I even thought he looked more like a center back than a midfielder. Another player, like, for example, that was interesting, but I'm like, I have to see more. Griffin Yao, I want to see more for club. Something's there, but I need to watch more. Taylor Booth barely played. Looked dangerous when he was there, but barely played. Didn't change anything. Kevin Paredes had his moments, had some bad moments, also didn't convince me. I need to watch him more for Wolfsburg. Goalkeeper, biggest disappointment. I really wanted Schulte or Gaga Sonina to step up. Schulte was poor with his feet. And in terms of shot stopping, was okay. Like, had some bad moments, some good moments. Didn't convince me. So overall, that was to me something that I can't give it a 10 out of 10 because I was hoping at least like 1 or 2, but there was almost no one. Busio had some moments, but also didn't really spark that for me. So I'm going to give the summer, for in terms of positive outlook for the future, an 8.5 out of 10 instead of 10. But if we hire, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. But if we hire like Klopp, then I would just change it completely. Like, oh my God, we got rid of Berhalter, we got Klopp. That's a 10 out of 10 summer. I don't give a crap about
it's like the art of the possible right now with me. And like, honestly, like I'm thinking my brain right now is so hardcore in 2026 mode, and you and Pete do a good job. And a lot of the other guys on Twitter do a great job of thinking even beyond that. And I appreciate that. But like, as a fan, right, I'm coming from a total fan perspective. It's like everything is laser focused to 2026. And what comes after that, I'll figure it out a month after that World Cup. I want that World Cup, and I want that World Cup to be as good as it can possibly be. And like our world as fans, if you were somebody who didn't believe in the last regime, it just feels like, oh, the world's our oyster right now. Can we go do it? And to your point, I might be pretty disappointed and change that really quickly if we get the wrong coaching hire. But as of right now, it feels good, Tack. I'm like, all right, the art of the possible. Like, what can we do?
Yeah, I mean, I said this. I don't know if I said it in the introduction of this video or the other video. And I don't know if I said this before too, but when Berhalter was fired, it almost felt like when you were constipated for a whole week and you just took a massive dump. And you're just like, oh my goodness. This is what it feels like. It's like, this was beautiful, wonderful. I'm free. Like almost like an exorcism. But everyone, let us know your thoughts in the comment section below of everything we talked about, and drop a like if you made it this far. Make sure to follow Adam on Twitter. You guys can see his handle is right below his head. And we'll see you all in part 2. Bye-bye.